Because I was going to ask you about that, because you're part of Man Up, the Man Up group, and obviously that's part of Destiny Church and that, and they were quite involved. You were quite involved locally with the cleanup. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm currently a resident in Napier, in Miani, and so when it all happened, the whole Cyclone Gabrielle hit that eve or that morning or that night, because of my background in building, you always have stuff. So my generator and all that stuff packed on the trailer, shot over to the Civil Defence Centre in St Joe's Maltagills, and there was no power at the time, there was no generator, so I ended up pulling out my generator, left it there for the whole week, and just helping out there with all the hundreds of elderly people that were getting vacated to the area, or to that centre. And then from there I knew straight away, you just kicked in, I need to get out there and help some people. And so we quickly shot out to Estelle, because what really stirred me is I actually jumped on Facebook in the morning and wanted to see, okay, what's going on. Early, and it must have been about 5 o'clock, I saw my mate going live on his roof out Estelle, and the water was up to his gutter, and he had his kids in a canoe, some kind of dinghy there, that's right, he had a dinghy, and his uncle was, elderly uncle there, and they were getting ready to get on the boat. He was yelling out for help, his phone was on 7%. And so when I saw that, I knew, man, I need to get my family to safety, so that's what we did. But anyway, fast forward from there, as soon as the bridges open, because most of my church is based in Hastings, as soon as the bridges open and communications were strong again, I went live. I ended up talking to Brian Tamaki. I asked him, hey, can we send, if we send down 100 guys, they'll be here working for months. If we can even get them down for a couple of weeks, do some voluntary work, diggers, trucks, all the rest of it. My community is hurting. And then he put the call out, and the first day 400 showed up.
Wow.
So I hadn't planned the accommodation for 400. So that was so I took
luckily you affiliated to Many Mariah.
Oh yeah, well this one was the Hastings District Council. So I spoke to Henare O'Keefe, a beautiful friend, and many others in the council, and we got a hold of some people, and we ended up taking over. They ended up giving us the Hastings Sports Centre.
Oh yeah.
And so 400 quickly grew to 1,200.
Wow.
And so it was a great response.
All around
they came from Invercargill. They weren't just actually in the church. We probably had at least 400 from the church, but the remainder was actually from the community. I met some great people. Some could speak English really well. Some were half English, a few interesting chaps, but from all ethnicities and all backgrounds came business people. From as far as up north, I know of three companies that came down with a truck, transported 2 diggers. Wow. Him and his wife and their children came down, and he volunteered the whole month. And all they wanted to do is have a place where they could sleep, and you just showed me where the work was.
So you just fed them and gave them a place, and they worked free of charge?
Yes, that's literally what happened. And they would resource themselves. We, of course, our centre became quite a hot spot from the nation's perspective, where they were sending resource, and fuel and stuff like that, and we just basically took care of ourselves. And because I'm a local and from here, the Marais, most of them I'm connected to, also Tamoyo as well, actually. And so I knew where I could send all these hundreds of really keen New Zealanders that wanted to help.
And what were they doing, just clearing salt and things like that?
I think in the first 2 weeks we cleared out 120 homes with shovels and wheelbarrows, because you couldn't get a digger in the house.
Yeah.
And so we're clearing salt chest high.
Wow.
Some of the homes, and I'm so thankful for all the young fellas that came actually, because we had a mixture of ages from 75, in between, newborns to 75. Now some of the elderly people, I was telling them, look, they really wanted to get out there and get into the silt, and I gave them the option, but they eventually just jumped in and did all the food, because that was still really important for keeping the whole, it was like an army of volunteers. And so we sweep through the whole region, Tamoyo, Patani, Estelle, Puketapu South, Mōtio, Waiheke, Pakowhai, and Omahu.
Yeah, and it must have been quite something, because you saw the devastation firsthand. How did that affect you?
I think the 20 years being a pastor, you kind of, I'm not saying that you're prepared for this stuff, but you have some kind of emotional strength. I call it spiritual strength. You draw from within. So you have that there. But in saying that, I don't think anything prepares you really for some of the stuff you've seen. It was horrendous. It was horrific. There were families crying. Most of the time, we were doing the work with the shovels, but it was actually just an unspoken, non-verbal hug that actually was quite. They would draw tears. Some of the families hadn't had any support.
Yeah.
They had no support. They were angry at everyone. And so part of that too actually motivated me to actually, you know what, I'm going to stand for our region of Tukituki, because I saw that. I mean, these guys need someone who care. That was my perspective. Yeah.
And how do you think the government and the councils have handled the recovery?
I could say so many different things to that answer. Partly because some of the council are my friends now, but look, how do you prepare for a 1 year storm? I think the timeliness, they could have done a lot better. They could have got more resources out. Look, I know everyone's, there's a lot of people out there that are thanking the civil defence. I have a different perspective because I was at a civil defence centre that had no resources.
Oh yeah.
And I saw 200 to 300 elderly people there. It looked like a hospital ward when I rocked up. And I got to make a big shout out to Whai Kingi and the St. Joseph's Māori Girls College, who held that down, who fed them. If it wasn't for my generator and another guy there who putting his generator in, they would have no power. Just to make simple things like a hot cup of coffee for all these elderly people that were getting put there. So I think the government could have responded a lot quicker. I was recently in a meeting. I attended the Pakowhai community meeting 2 nights ago. Yeah. And the response, look, they're making areas category 3, which means that they can live there, but they won't get any insurance. Yeah. And if they want to do any building or get building or resource consent, it's probably going to be a no. Yeah. And so what do you do? Because majority of Pakowhai now is in that category, and all of Estale and a few other, I think 350 odd properties. Yes. And so they've got this deal where it's a 50-50 deal. Government will give 50%. Yeah. Council has to come up with the other 50%. Council have negotiated, I think, a good package around the roading and other sort of, I suppose, additions to that deal. Yeah. But again, for me, and thinking about the people of Tukituki, I'm sure we can do better. Yeah. And do you think your involvement in the recovery and that will help your chances in the election? I do hope it does. At the end of the day, people, I'll say this, if we want different, we've got to vote different. Yeah. We've had, I think, close to 80 years, maybe more. I actually haven't had a look at the history of red and blue, Labour and National. I think a lot of people want different. I think a lot of people of our community, the people that I've been speaking to and rubbing up shoulders with, they've been talking about they want something different. They're sick of the same thing happening and going on, broken promises and people throwing out carrots for votes. We had a debate last week. The first debate, it was actually organised by the Hastings Youth Council. And one of the questions was, do you believe people can tell the truth in politics? And so you had the Green, the Labour and the National, obviously, and the ACT, they all said yes. I couldn't just say one answer. I had to be honest. I said, look, I know I can tell the truth. I don't know about these guys. Because like everyone else, I'm gonna be voting too. And I want to make sure my vote counts. Yeah. And I'm not talking about a wasted voter, but I'm talking about going to someone or to a party that has values that help me and my family and our community.